Hello everyone, welcome to another video about the Lord of the Rings living card game. Today's video is going to be the first in a three-part series where I'm going to be showing you a series of decks that can take on the scenarios from the Heirs of Numenor expansion. So these are solo decks aimed at people who are still getting into the game, have reached Heirs of Numenor and want to beat the scenarios with just 3 heroes. So the reason I decided to make these videos is because one of the things that I still see a lot of newer players struggling with, and this is something that I struggled with myself when I was new, is beating the scenarios from this expansion. One reason for that is because they're actually quite hard, but another is because they do require quite specific deck building at times, and it's not always easy to figure out what you have to do as a newer player to beat these quests, so it can be very frustrating to encounter these scenarios for the first time. So what I'm going to do in each of these videos is talk you through the deck that I've made for the scenario in question, and I'll explain some of the card choices to give you some insight into the deck building process. And then I'll show you a playthrough where I'll play the deck and hopefully beat the quest. One thing to know about these decks is that I've made them using a limited card pool, using cards that were released up to and including Heirs of Numenor, and I've also restricted myself to 1 copy of the core set, so you can see here the list of packs that I've used. You'll notice as well that I've also allowed myself the Black Riders expansion, which is the first box from the Lord of the Rings saga, because I think that's an expansion that newer players tend to gravitate towards. So I think most people might actually have access to that one. But if you don't have access to it, or you don't want to use it because you want to play pure progression style, the only card I'm using from the Black Riders here is the Dagger of Westerness. So if you want to take this card out, what you can do is go up to 3 copies of Rivendell Blade, and then with your 2 remaining slots, I'd suggest either Blade of Gondolin ×2 from the core set. That one's not so great here because it's only +1 attack against orcs, and there aren't any orcs in this scenario, but you will still get the progress from killing things, and it will also allow you to trigger one of the events that we're using, which is Foehammer. Another card you could swap it for is 2 copies of Blade Mastery. That's a 1-cost tactics event which gives +1 attack and defense, so it kind of functions as a similar kind of card to Dagger of Westerness, which gives us +1 attack. Okay, so let's have a look at the heroes we've got for the first quest, Peril in Pelargir. So I've chosen Lore Aragorn, Tactics Boromir, and Spirit Glorfindel. So why these heroes? Well, there are 2 reasons. One is because the early game in Peril in Pelargir is very intense. You can start off with potentially 3 enemies to deal with on turn 1, and you also have an active location that you need to clear. So Boromir has the ability of you can raise your threat by 1 to ready him as an action. So we're going to use him as our main attacker and defender, and he's going to allow us to handle that early pressure that comes from having to deal with potentially 2, maybe 3 enemies on the first turn. Another reason is because the first stage of this quest is actually a battle quest, so we have to use our attack power instead of willpower. And you can see there that all 3 heroes have got 3 attack. So that allows us to quest for 9 on the first turn, which is usually enough to cover whatever the encounter deck throws at you. And it can also clear the active location. You start the game with an active location, so 9 is sometimes enough to clear that outright. Another thing that's really nice about these 3 heroes together is that Boromir's action costs us a threat each time we have to ready him, and Glorfindel costs us a threat whenever we exhaust him to quest. We do have his signature attachment, Light of Valinor, but you don't always see it in the early game. So sometimes you may be raising your threat to quest with him. And that's where Aragorn comes in, because his refresh action will allow us to reduce our threat back to our starting level, which in this case is 28, which is a really nice low starting threat considering the power of the heroes that we're using. And so he's going to mitigate the sort of drawback of Boromir and Glorfindel, and that means we can be really gung-ho with Boromir. We can defend with him, attack with him as merrily as we like, and rely on Aragorn to keep us out of trouble by going back down to 28 threat. Another really cool thing here is that in this quest there is a treachery card called Local Trouble. And what that does is attaches to one of your heroes, and you have to raise your threat every time you ready, exhaust, or trigger the hero's ability. So if that goes on Boromir, it's a disaster, because you're going to be raising your threat by a ton to make use of him. But actually Local Trouble attaches to the hero with the highest threat cost, and in this case that's Aragorn. So it's really cool that Aragorn's kind of drawing the attention away from Boromir and letting him do his thing. And we've also got a way of getting rid of the local trouble once it's attached. So it attaches as a condition attachment, and when you can use Miner of the Iron Hills to get that off of Aragorn once it enters play. So those are the heroes. They're going to do most of the heavy lifting for us in this quest. We've got 14 allies in the deck. Now, one thing to know about Peril and Pelargir is that there's an enemy who does 1 damage to each of your allies whenever he engages you, or 2 damage if he wasn't optionally engaged. So what that means in effect is that we can't really rely on allies in this quest because they're going to die very easily. So the allies that I've chosen have very specific purposes within the deck. So we've got 2 copies of Arwen and Domiel. The reason she's here is because the 3rd quest stage is a willpower quest, so she can put 2 towards that. But also because whenever she exhausts, we can give +1 defense to a character, and we're going to give that to Boromir. The reason being that all of the enemies in this scenario are typically somewhere around 3 attack. So if he gets to 3 defense, he can defend those and not take any wounds. Then we've got 1 copy of Bofur. He's a really nice ally that we can chuck in for 1 spirit resource if we happen to draw him. He's not essential to see, but he does help you to quest either for battle or willpower questing because he's got 2 willpower. And you could even play him for 3 in the late game and he'll survive that enemy because he's got 3 health. So then we've got 3 copies of Envoy of Pelargir. This is really just a chump blocker, a chud ally. But it effectively costs 1 in this deck because it costs 2, and then when you play it, you can add a resource to a Gondor or Noble's hero's resource pool. And in this case we've got Boromir, who's Gondor and a Noble, and we've got Glorfindel, who's a Noble. So we could possibly use resources from Aragorn if we've got a lot of lore left over and move them around to different heroes. Then I've gone for 3 copies of Gandalf from Overhill and Underhill. So I think this card is really overlooked in solo because people tend to automatically go for the core set Gandalf. But here in this quest, this Gandalf's amazing because he can quest for 4, either in battle or willpower, without exhausting. And he's got that drawback of raising your threat by 2 at the end of each round. But because we're using Lore Aragorn, we don't care about that drawback. So he really helps you to speed through this quest. If your threat gets to something a bit precarious, like 44, 45, you can use Aragorn to go back down to 28. Then we've got Miner Iron Hills. Again, this is just there to discard the local trouble once it's attached, but you can also use this guy to chump block or soak up archery damage. And then the last one, we've got 3 copies of Vassal of the Windlord. So this ally is not going to stick around for very long, but if you happen to get this on turn 1, it pretty much guarantees that you're going to clear the active location, the Leaping Fish. So this is a great early game card, 1 cost for 3 attack. He can also be used to kill enemies if you need him for that. Let's have a look at the attachment. So first thing I want to draw your attention to here is the fact that we've got 3 copies of Song of Wisdom and 3 copies of a Burning Brand. So that's intended to go on Boromir because he's going to be our main defender. In testing this deck, I found that one of the main things that could mess you up in this quest is the shadow effects. There's one that can give +2 attack to an enemy, and there's another one that can discard your entire hand. So obviously that one is really, really nasty. So if you can get a Burning Brand onto Boromir in the early game, and actually if you see Song of Wisdom and Burning Brand on turn 1, you can play that by playing Song of Wisdom onto Boromir with Glorfindel's resource, and then playing Burning Brand onto Boromir. And that will pretty much make you safe from all of those shadow effects for the rest of the game. Sometimes you have to use Aragorn as a secondary defender, in which case he can also take a copy of Burning Brand if you happen to draw it. Then we've got 3 copies of Ancient Matham. So in solo it's really important to have as much draw as possible to keep your deck moving. So I've got 3 copies of that, which can be played on the active location on turn 1 if you happen to draw one. And alongside that we've got 3 copies of Daeron's Runes as a draw card, and 3 copies of Foehammer because we've got some weapons in the deck, so we can exhaust those to draw 3 cards. And I've got 1 copy of Asvaloth. This isn't really essential, which is why I've got 1 copy of it, but it's nice to see. You can play it and clear out some locations from the staging area sometimes without needing to travel to them. Then we've got 3 copies of Dagger of Westerness, so this is intended for Boromir, +1 attack or +2 if the enemy's engagement cost is higher than their threat. We've also got 2 Rivendell Blade. Those are for Glorfindel, and that means that he can attack alongside Boromir and pretty much kill any enemy in this quest. Then we got the Light of Valinor, again essential to play I think when you use Spirit Glorfindel. We got 3 copies because if we happen to draw a second one, we can always discard that to Daeron's runes, or we can discard it to Protector of Lorien, and this card is intended for Boromir as well, so we want to get Boromir to 3 defense, and this is another way we can do that. Definitely want to put your first copy onto him. It's also useful in the 3rd stage of the quest where we can discard cards from our hand to boost our willpower and hurry along our route to victory. Okay, finally let's have a look at the event. So 2 copies of Test of Will. This is going to be useful to cancel the local troubles. There's also a couple of other nasty treacheries which you would probably just want to cancel if you happen to see them in the late game. Then we've got 1 copy of Dwarven Tomb from the core set. So this is effectively a 3rd Test of Will here, I think. You can get 1 back from your discard pile to your hand. But you could also use this to recur an Ancient Matham. If you've triggered it and it's gone to the discard pile, you could grab it back and potentially draw another 3. 3 copies of Elrond's Council. This is really nice to use if you're using Spirit Glorfindel. It's got to lower our threat, but also give us +1 willpower in stage 3. 2 copies of Feint. Useful for stopping enemies attacking. There's never anything bad about that. 3 copies of Foehammer for draw, and then I've gone for 2 copies of Hasty Stroke just as a kind of backup if we don't happen to see a Burning Brand or a Song of Wisdom. We can use this one to cancel a shadow effect in the early game, hopefully. So that's the deck. What I'll do now is jump into a playthrough and show you how it works. Okay, so I've loaded up the deck in Octagon. First thing we need to do is have a look at our starting hand in the setup. I don't like this opening hand, to be honest with you, because we've got a lot of tactics cards. We've got a Foehammer and we don't have a weapon, so we can't trigger that event yet. And what you really want to look for in your opening hand is Song of Wisdom and Burning Brand. Another good card to have is Vassal of the Windlord, which we've got, but because I don't like the rest of it, I'm going to take a mulligan here. So let's see what we get this time. Okay, so we've got a Burning Brand. We've got quite a lot of lore cards. We've got an early Gandalf, which is quite interesting, so I have to keep this now, so we'll see what happens. So let's follow the setup. So we've got search the encounter deck for the Leaping Fish and Alcaron's Scroll. Make the Leaping Fish the active location and attach Alcaron's Scroll to a hero. So the Leaping Fish is already there. That says if Alcaron's Scroll is attached to a hero, which it will be on the first turn, the Leaping Fish gains Forced. At the beginning of the quest phase, discard X cards from the top of the encounter deck, where X is the number of players in the game. Add each enemy discarded by this effect to the staging area, so we're going to be discarding 1 card on the first turn. And then we have to attach Alcaron's Scroll to a hero, so let's have a look at that. So that reads, if unattached, return Alcaron's Scroll to the staging area, and it gains action. Exhaust a hero to attach Alcaron's Scroll to that hero. Forced. When a hero with Alcaron's Scroll attached is damaged by an enemy attack, attach Alcaron's Scroll to that enemy. So what we're going to do with this is we're going to put that onto Boromir. And typically a way to play this quest is to allow the hero who's got the scroll to take 1 damage, and then he'll drop the scroll and you can leave it in the staging area until you're ready to pick it up again and progress through the quest stages. So that's the setup done. Let's flip the quest card and see what that says. So that's a battle quest. Characters use their attack instead of willpower when questing. And it says, when revealed, each player must search the encounter deck for a copy of Harbour Thug and add it to the staging area. Shuffle the encounter deck. So let's go and grab one of those now. There's one there. So we'll add him to the staging area there. Shuffle that one up. And we'll start the first turn. So let's see what we draw. Okay, Foehammer. So I don't have a weapon, so that's not going to help us right now. I can't play anything this turn. I have nothing that costs 1. So I'm not going to do anything. I'm just going to quest all in here because we want to try to get through as much, get as much questing power as possible to try and clear the Leaping Fish. So let's move to the quest phase. So beginning of the quest phase, we have to discard a card from the top of the encounter deck. Let's see what it is. Okay, collateral damage. So it's not an enemy, so it doesn't go into the staging area. So we discard that one. And then I'm going to quest all in with all 3 of my heroes for 9. And I have to raise my threat by 1 for Glorfindel. So quest for 9 here. And reveal 1 card. Okay, another collateral damage. So let's have a look and see what it says. When revealed, discard 2 cards from the top of the encounter deck. Discard an additional 2 cards for each copy of collateral damage in the discard pile. Then raise each player's threat by 2 for each location discarded by this effect. So we just revealed 1 a minute ago, so we need to discard 4 now. So 4 cards, so we go 1, 2, 3, 4. So 2 locations. So we need to raise our threat by 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. But not too bad, because we've only got 2 threat in the staging area from the thug, so we make 7 progress. So we'll get 6 on the leaping fish and 1 on the main quest. And this goes to the victory display. So we've dealt with that, no problem. Okay, so nothing to travel to, no locations in the staging area. So this Harbour Thug, we'll optionally engage him, and he'll get a shadow card. So this is where we start to use Boromir. So we're going to ready Boromir, that costs us 1 threat, and we'll defend with Boromir, and reveal this shadow card. Okay, nothing, there's a copy of Local Trouble gone, so that's good. And he's 3 attack, Boromir's 2 defense, Boromir will take 1 wound, and that means that the scroll attaches to the Harbour Thug. Now I want to kill this guy, but I've only got 3 attack from Boromir. I think I'm going to ready him and make an attack anyway, because then it will soften up the thug and we can kill him next turn. So I raise my threat by 1 to ready Boromir, exhaust him, and do 2 wounds to the thug. Then we'll refresh. Okay, so again, we don't have a lot to play, so I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to play an early Gandalf. And I'm going to use Boromir's resources and 2 from Aragorn and 1 from Glorfindel. The reason being that if we happen to draw Light of Valinor, Test of Will, anything else next turn, we can play it and then grab it back with Dwarven Tomb, because we'll have 2 resources. So Gandalf doesn't exhaust to commit to a quest, so I'm going to commit him to the quest. So he's going to quest for 4. And I'm going to commit Boromir, so that's 7. And I think the most we can reveal from the encounter deck is 4. It would be nice to clear the first stage, I think. So let's quest with Aragorn as well. And we'll see what comes out. I'm going to keep Glorfindel back. If we get another enemy, we can use him with Boromir to kill that enemy, and Boromir can kill this thug this turn as well. So we'll reveal 1 card. Okay, Pickpocket. When Pickpocket attacks, the defending player discards 1 resource from one of his hero's resource pools, and 1 card at random from his hand. So there goes that resource on Glorfindel. But he's 3, and we had 10, so we're going to make 7. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 progress. That takes us to the next stage. Fighting in the Streets doesn't have anything on 2A. Let's flip it over. This is a battle quest again, so we have to use our attack power instead of willpower. The players cannot advance to the next stage unless Alcaron's Scroll is attached to a hero. And it says, when revealed, attach Alcaron's Scroll to the highest engagement cost enemy in play, if able. Otherwise, add Alcaron's Scroll to the staging area. So it's already attached to that thug, so we don't need to do anything with that. So travel phase, nothing to travel to. We'll engage the Pickpocket. He's going to engage us anyway. And we lose that resource from Glorfindel. And we have to discard a card. Oh, so we lost the Dwarven Tomb as well. Alright, so these guys are going to get shadow cards. So I'm going to ready Boromir for 1, because I need him to defend something. Here I'm going to defend the Harbour Thug with Gandalf, because he is attacking for 3. I just noticed that says when Pickpocket attacks, so let's do him first, because I've just taken away the resource and discarded the card. So I'll defend Pickpocket with Boromir. Shadow card, attacking enemy gets +2, so he goes up to 3. Boromir's defending for 2, so he takes a wound. There's one of those nasty shadow effects I was talking about. And then we'll defend the Harbour Thug with Gandalf. Nothing, so no damage there. He's 3, Gandalf's defending for 4. So now I'm going to ready Boromir for 1. And I will attack the thug with Boromir to do 2 wounds, and that'll kill him. And that'll put the scroll back in the staging area. And then I'll attack the Pickpocket with Glorfindel and kill him. Glorfindel's attacking for 3, he's got 2 health, so he dies. So that dealt with all that. And then we'll refresh, go to the next round, and I have to raise my threat by 2 to keep Gandalf in play. So drew another Burning Brand, not a great draw here. I've had a bit of trouble with draw this game, to be honest with you. But we're still in it, no problem so far. So I'm not going to play anything again because I can't play anything, it will cost 2. So we'll quest with 4 with Gandalf, 7, 10. And I think here I'll probably quest with Glorfindel for an extra 3. Because the chances are we're going to reset our threat this turn, I think. So we'll reveal 1 card. Okay, Zealous Traitor. When Zealous Traitor engages a player, that player must deal 1 damage to each ally he controls, 2 damage instead if Zealous Traitor was not optionally engaged. So he's the guy I was talking about. He's why we can't rely on any weak allies in this quest. So that puts the staging area threat at 2. So we're going to make up to 13, I believe. Let me just check that. 4, 7, 10, 13. So we're going to make 11 progress on that one. And then we will optionally engage the Zealous Traitor. So that's going to deal 1 wound to Gandalf. He'll get a shadow card. So he's attacking for 3. And I could kill him with Gandalf. So I think I'm tempted to defend with Boromir. But if we see that +2 attack shadow effect, he'll die. So I'm going to defend it with Gandalf instead. Let's see what we get. Okay, look, there it is, look, +2 attack. So he goes up to 5, so that takes a wound on Gandalf. And we'll ready Boromir for 1, and we'll attack him and do 1 wound. Okay, so we'll go to the refresh phase, and normally now I would probably let my threat go up by another 3, so +1 and +2 for Gandalf. But here I'm going to reset my threat with Aragorn, because if we reveal another collateral damage treachery, we're probably going to lose. So we first refresh, and then in the refresh phase we have to reset our threat to 28 with Aragorn. And then at the end of the round, or end of the refresh phase, sorry, we raise our threat by 2 for Gandalf. Okay, so now we can actually play some stuff because we've got some resources. We don't have a Song of Wisdom, so I can't play this onto Boromir yet. Arwen's not going to help us that much because she can't quest for battle. So I think I'm going to keep the spirit resources back for her next turn. There aren't any locations in play, so this isn't going to help us. So I think, again, I'm not going to play anything here. I'm just going to wait and bide my time and see what comes at us. So questing, I'm going to quest for 4 with Gandalf, guaranteed. And we only need 2 on this, so we don't need to do a massive amount. So I think I'll just do Boromir for 7. And I don't think the encounter deck can do anything to stop us here. So we'll reveal 1 card. Okay, Lurking in the Shadows. Return all brigand enemies engaged with players to the staging area. If this effect return no brigand enemies to the staging area, Lurking in Shadows gains Surge. Okay, so we've got a brigand on us, so we'll put that one back into the staging area. That only puts 2 in there though, so we're going to make 5 progress. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we can't actually advance yet because we don't have Alcaron's Scroll attached to a hero. And I'm not going to pick that up yet, and you'll see why in a second. So now I'm going to optionally engage the Zealous Traitor, and he's going to do 1 damage to Gandalf. And then we'll give him a shadow card. So now we need to defend him. I think here, rather than risk Gandalf, I'm going to defend it with Aragorn. He can survive. Okay, no shadow effect, and that's a really nasty enemy, by the way, so it's good to get rid of him. He's probably the biggest threat in this scenario, to be honest, for this deck. If you watch my Nightmare playthrough of this quest, I actually have to discard Aragorn to him. So I'm glad to see the back of him. So he's attacking for 3, we've got 2 defense, 1 wound on Aragorn. And then we'll attack back. I guess we'll do 3 with Glorfindel. It's enough to kill him, so we don't need to worry about anything else. So he dies. And then now, still in the combat phase, I'm going to ready at Boromir for 1. And I'm going to exhaust him to claim the scroll. And what that will do is that will take us to the next stage immediately. So we advance to stage 3A. When revealed, each player searches the encounter deck and discard pile for 1 enemy and adds it to the staging area. Okay, so let's do that. And the enemy you want to grab here is a Harbour Thug. So we're going to take one of those and put it in the staging area there. Shuffle that. And then I'm going to ready Boromir for 1, raising my threat by 1. And that's going to trigger the forced effect on the Harbour Thug. So that says when the player whose hero has Alcaron's Scroll attached raises his threat, Harbour Thug engages that player. So here he comes. And because we're still in our attack phase, he doesn't get a shadow card, but we can attack him back. And I'll attack him for 4 with Gandalf, and that's going to kill him. And then we'll go to the next turn. I should flip that quest card over, by the way, as well. So that says enemies cannot be optionally engaged, so that didn't mess with the Harbour Thug player did just there, because that wasn't optional engagement. And it says force. The first enemy revealed from the encounter deck each round makes an immediate attack against the player who controls Alcaron's scroll from the staging area. The players cannot defeat this stage unless Alcaron's scroll is attached to a hero. If the players defeat this stage, they've won the game. So all we need to do now is get through that stage. So let's refresh and go to the next turn, and we have to raise our threat by 2 for Gandalf. So we've drawn another Burning Brand, but we still don't have a Song of Wisdom, so we can't play that on Boromir yet. So I'm actually going to play some stuff now. So I'm going to pay 2 for Arwen, because she can help us quest through the stage. And I think I will probably play a Burning Brand onto Aragorn, just because they're sitting in my hand. There's nothing to do with them. I could play Asfloth, but there are no locations in play at the moment. So now we just want to quest with everyone. So we're going to quest for 2, 6 with Gandalf, 7, 8, 9 with Glorfindel, raise the threat by 1. I think we'll leave Aragorn back as a defender here. So we'll quest with Boromir. So we're going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And we'll reveal 1 card. Okay, Pickpocket. So as soon as that's revealed, it makes an immediate attack. So we're going to defend that one with Aragorn. This cancels the shadow effect. It's gone. And it says when he attacks, we have to discard a resource from one of our hero's resource pools and a card at random. So we'll get rid of one from Boromir and discard a card. Okay, we lost Asfloth. So that puts 3 in the staging area, so we're going to get 7 progress here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And I could play Elrond's Council, but I think I'll save it for the next turn in case I need it. One thing I forgot to do, by the way, was trigger Arwen and Domiel's response there, so I think I probably would have given that to Boromir in this situation. I could have given it to Aragorn, but we didn't need it in the end. So now he's going to engage us. We can't optionally engage him. There's nothing we can do about it. We'll ready him, and I'll ready Boromir for 1. And I'll defend this with Boromir. So we lose a resource again. I'm going to take 1 from Boromir, discard a card from my hand. Okay, Burning Brand. No shadow effect, so only 1 attack, no wounds on Boromir. And then we'll just attack him back with Gandalf and kill him. Then we're going to refresh, and we have to go up by 2 for Gandalf. Here I'm going to play Protector of Lorien onto Boromir for 1. And I'm not going to play anything else. I'm just going to quest with everybody now. So I'm going to quest for 2, 6, 7, 8, 9, raise the threat by 1, 10, 11, 12. And we'll reveal 1 card. Okay, Lurking in Shadows. That's going to gain Surge because we haven't got any Brigand enemies engaged with us. Reveal 1 card, Harbour Thug. So he's going to make an immediate attack. Here I'll ready Boromir for 1 threat. Defend it with Boromir. And he gets the +1 defense off of Arwen's response, by the way, which I forgot to trigger again. Defending player discards all resources in his hero's resource pools. Well, I may as well cancel that one, because I've got that hasty stroke there, so why not? So he's 3. Boromir is currently defending for 2, but what I can do is discard 1 card from my hand, and I think here I'll discard the Faux Hammer to make him 3 defense. He would have been 4 with Arwen as well. So he doesn't take any wounds. So we've got 2 threat in the staging area, so we're going to get 10 progress on the quest, which means we win. So there you go. So that was a fairly strange playthrough, to be honest. We had a lot of expensive cards in our hand. I didn't see a Song of Wisdom, so I couldn't play that Burning Brand, which I wanted to show you. But you can see, even though we couldn't play most of the cards in our hand for much of that game, we still beat it because of the power level of the heroes combined with Gandalf. So if you're struggling with Peril and Pelargir, this is definitely a deck you can use to beat the quest. And I'll see you in the next video where we'll be taking a look at Into Ithilien.